Hey guys and gals, hope everyone's doing well. So this next video that I'm going to start piecing together is definitely going to be my most epic DIY I've ever done. I thought doing the air filter was super epic, removing the whole back end of this car just to change an $80 air filter. I thought that was crazy. And then I managed to do it. I did it successfully. Now I have all the confidence in the world I can do it again easily. Then came this whole Sport Cats, which was just a whole nother level of nuts. And I managed to do that. So I have no reason to think that I can't do this next DIY, which is lowering the car on sport springs. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm really excited about this. There's been some great content that I've come across on the internet, some DIY videos, some forum posts. I've been researching this for a long time to prepare myself mentally to know everything that I can potentially encounter while doing this job. I think it's going to be pretty straightforward. I don't expect to have too many hiccups or unexpected surprises. But in any event, I'm going to start putting this together, this video. I'll do a quick review of the parts I'm going to be installing. I'm also going to be putting in some Porsche OEM spacers. That should be easy. That's just going to be like, I'm going to do it concurrent to the springs. And then I'll also show, before I get started, I'll do a little bit of like before, to show some before photos or video, so that we could see the change after we do the installation. So I'm really looking forward to this. What I'm really hoping to do is to be able to create a video that is, for lack of a better term, dumbed down to a level that any novice, amateur, do-it-yourselfer would feel confident to be able to do this. And I'm pretty confident that I'm going to be able to achieve that. So stay tuned. There's going to be a lot more to come. I don't know how many parts this video is going to be, because this could end up being a very long video that I have to break up into multiple parts. But so have a little patience, and we'll be back soon. All right, guys and gals. So here's what we're going to be installing on the vehicle. These are the Eibach springs. These are in fact made in Germany, and these are made specifically for the Porsche 991.2 C2S. This kit of springs includes the two rears as well as the two fronts. I went with the Eibachs because after reading all the reviews, looking at all the specifications of the springs, seeing photos, I thought that these were the perfect compromise for what I wanted in terms of ride stiffness and ride height. And so I know there's a lot of people out there that are big fans of the H&Rs and the Tech Arts, and I know they're great, and it's really just a matter of taste and preference, but I went with these, and I'm looking forward to having them on the car. And then the other thing that I'm going to be installing are these spacers. These are Porsche OEM spacers, also made in Germany and made by Porsche. And these are they're modest in thickness. They're only 5 millimeters, so I'm not expecting to see a significant improvement in the width of the stance. But I felt really comfortable going with what's considered an OEM part that the vehicle could have actually been spec'd with from the factory. So just looking for a very modest change, and I'm confident that I'm going to achieve that with these. And I like the fact that these are in fact made by Porsche for Porsche vehicles, and specifically for the 911. What was nice with this kit is that it actually came with a complete set of lug bolts. And the reason this is important is because you need longer lug bolts to install spacers. And so this kit comes with, again, the Porsche lug bolts, as well as a set of Porsche lug bolt security bolts with the key. So I'll be changing out all my current lug bolts and putting in these new ones. And anyways, it's gonna look great. Looking forward to it. Coming up next, I'm gonna show either some before photos or video, or a combination of both, just to give us a point of reference, so that way we can look back and compare when the job is done. So stay tuned, everybody. We'll be back shortly. So here are just a sample of some of the tools that are going to be needed to do this job. So first of all, I'm not going to be going over the tools that were used to remove the tire and to replace it, such as the breaker bar and the torque wrench and things like that. But I do want to just point out some of the tools based on the sizes of the nuts and bolts that I've identified will be necessary for this job. Now, out here, what you see are a bunch of wrenches. There are some of these that I may use sockets for instead of the wrenches, and I do have a pretty decent collection here of sockets and wrenches. But the ones that I've identified are the 27 millimeter, the 19 millimeter, the 18 millimeter, the 16 millimeter, the 13 millimeter, this one here, an offset, which is used for the top of the struts, as well as a 13 millimeter deep socket, also a 10 millimeter and a 9 millimeter. You're going to need strut nut sockets in the size of 19 and 21, and then you'll also need a T55 bit. Now, as I mentioned, there are other tools, but these are just some of the ones that I've identified preliminarily to have out and ready. I'm probably going to find a need to use some PB Blaster at some point. You're also going to need to have a strut spring compression tool. I don't actually own this tool, and a friend of mine told me that if you just go to an AutoZone, that they'll loan one out to you for free. You just have to leave a deposit, and then when you're done using it, you bring it back. In this case, it was like $55. Another thing you might want to have on hand is some masking tape, and the reason you might want to have that is if you want to protect the finish of your car like I do, then it's not a bad idea to have that put on the car and there to protect. So I'm sure there's going to be some other tools that I need, such as like maybe a needle nose plier. This screwdriver I have out because I believe I'm going to need that to assist in disconnecting the PASM cable from the top of the strut. You know, again, there's going to be more things like torque wrenches that I'll be using, and as I showed a moment ago, some sockets in place of some of these wrenches. But I just wanted to have everything out that I think I might need, and then if I discover I need additional tools that I did not mention, I'll be sure to point those out when they come up in the video. So stay tuned, more to come. So here we are getting ready to get started. I've got all my tools ready to go. And, you know, one thing to keep in mind when doing this job is that when you're disassembling and reassembling, you're going to be starting from the top and working your way down. So yes, there's a whole bunch of nuts and bolts that we're going to be removing down here, and I will get to those in due time. But before we start there, we got to start at the very top. And if you see here the strut tower, you see that there's a few screws that go up into the interior of the vehicle from the top of the strut assembly, and those can only be reached by removing this carpet here, and that will reveal the top of the strut assembly on both sides. So the next thing we're going to do is open this up so that we can start there, and then we will get to the bottom here. All right, so stay tuned. We'll be back shortly. Okay, so the first step in accessing the tops of these strut towers is to remove or lift this carpeted piece out of the way. And so basically you just pull it up like so and get it up on both sides here. There we go. Takes a little manhandling, but got it out. I'll just put it back here. So there's this cable here that connects, this is the PASM cable. There's a little tab here you need to lift up in order to separate and disconnect the cable. And I'm going to try to do it. Oh, I think I got it. Yep, there it is. So now that that's disconnected, I can go ahead and start removing these 3 screws, or nuts rather. And so for the front 2, I should be able to just use a regular socket. For the rear one, I might have to use the offset wrench. Those are all 13 millimeter. So stay tuned, more to come. So here I am just to show you, using a deep socket to remove this one, I'm not going to do it all the way right now because that'll just be a waste of your time on video, but I'll do the same thing with this one here, and then I'll do an offset wrench. But this here is a 13mm socket. So once you get that on there, probably be easier with a an electric ratchet or a impact right angle wrench. Anyways, I'll get those all loosened up, and we'll move on to the next step. So after loosening those two with the regular socket wrench, I ended up turning to this electric cordless socket wrench, which really helped making removing those a lot easier. So as I mentioned earlier, when removing and reinstalling these strut assemblies, when removing, you're doing it from a top-down approach, and when you're reinstalling, you're going from the bottom up. So we've already got the top 3 strut tower nuts removed from the interior of the vehicle, and now we're going to begin working our way down. So the first place we're going to start is on this top control arm, where we are going to remove this leveling sensor, and I put a little piece of yellow tape there with an arrow pointing in the direction that the leveling sensor goes, because I wanted to make sure that I installed it in exactly the same spot. And then we will be removing this bolt here with an 18-inch wrench. After that, we'll move on down to here, and I will get to those, including the wrench sizes, in just a moment. All right, so this leveling sensor is just a little clip that pops right off nice and easily. Whoops. Let me just get this wedged in there. There you go. You see how that goes? And that will just slip right off. And there it is. It's just hanging there. Don't forget, that's where it goes. So if you want to mark it, I think that's a pretty good idea. Next, we're going to use an 18mm wrench, which I have here, to remove this bolt. Now, I haven't loosened it yet, and I'm afraid I'm going to skin another knuckle here. All right, I am going to loosen this without holding the camera because I definitely don't want any skin knuckles. Here's a little pro tip: don't be afraid to use a breaker bar when it makes sense. There we go. Yeah. Whoa. All right. I think I can get the rest off pretty easily using just the regular. Whoop. Now I should have an impact right angle wrench instead of just a standard socket wrench, but let's see if this will help finish this up. Nice. Okay, so for this bottom control arm here, and just for perspective, we are on the driver's side, rear tire, rear wheel. For this is the rearmost control arm on the bottom. You're going to need a 16-inch wrench on this side and an 18-inch wrench on this side. Don't forget, lefty loosey, righty tighty. Again, don't be afraid to use a breaker bar if it helps. And in this case, it definitely will help because these are on tight. And I'll use the cordless socket wrench here to loosen them all the way, but I'll use this to get things started. I might have to use a shorter one. Let's see, or maybe I don't even need, let's see. Oh, now we go. Oh, I see. All right, so maybe what I'll do is I'll hold that there, put this here. Let's see if this works. Oh yeah. right. We are making progress here. All right, well, so for this control arm, which is the one on the bottom closest to the brake caliper, what I thought was going to be a 19 on this side is actually a 21 millimeter wrench, and this is an 18. So I will be adding 21 millimeter wrench to my tool list, and I will review all the tools I used after the installation is complete as well. So let's see. We have to go counterclockwise. I may have to use the breaker bar for this. Let's see. Am I going? Yeah, that is. I'm definitely going to use the breaker bar for this. So, sure enough, a breaker bar is what I needed to get this one loose. And seriously making me think about getting myself an impact driver, one of those right angle ones. I don't know about this one. I think I got it loose enough where I can use the 21 millimeter here. Oh, wrong side. There we go. I need the 18 here. There we go. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing in the video there, but we are getting some stuff loose here. All right, so the last major connection point I think that we have to remove is the actual strut itself, and to do that you're going to need a whopping 27 millimeter wrench for this side. So just for perspective, that's opposite the brake caliper, 27 millimeter wrench, and you're also going to need a T55, and that's going to come in on the other side of the strut there. It's a little hard to see. You have to pull away this control arm here. Let's see if we could do that. There it is, right? I think you can maybe see it. There it is. That's where the T55 is going to go. Once we remove that, the strut is, I guess, ready to come down. We're going to see. But essentially what I have to do now is I've got to wiggle this strut assembly. I've got it all disconnected here. Oh, well, look at that. Should have done that in the first place. Okay, so I've never used one of these, but they seem pretty straightforward. You've got these hooks here that will clamp onto the spring, and then you kind of put these little pins over it to keep it in place. So I'm gonna set this up like so. Let's see, got that one. Let's see here. All right, got these on, and then we'll use this trusty impact drill, and you want to make sure to keep it that it stays the way you. All right, there we go. And you want to do it a little bit at a time. You don't want to just crank one side down all the way. So just a little bit. Okay, so this next part, this part's a little bit tricky. What you want to do is you want to get your strut nut socket onto the strut nut there, but you're also going to want to have, for the rear struts, it's a 9mm wrench. For the front ones, it's going to be a 10mm. You're going to want to have this on there, and then you got to figure out a way to turn this strut nut while holding the 9mm in place, but you can only do it a little bit at a time. So this actually is going to take a little while. So I'm not going to record this because I got started on this earlier, and I ended up loosening the spring clamps, and just wanted to come back and revisit this. But this is going to take a little while, and this is probably a little bit more tedious than needs to be shown on video. All right, I'm back. So the nut finally came off here. You can see that, and then this piece just all starts to come apart. So just remember the order that everything comes apart, and then hopefully you won't have any problems putting it all back together. But you can see here the shock, the strut pulls right out, and this will be all getting put on with the with the new springs. So stay tuned, because there's definitely more to come. All right, so here's an important part of this job that you don't want to forget to do. On the strut here, you can see that there's this kind of like a metal C-clamp, and you want to, so this is only on the rear strut. You can actually lower it down to this last position here. It's maybe about a ½ an inch. But a lot of people don't realize that you can do that with this vehicle, and just lower it by that amount without changing out the springs. But anyways, we're going to do both. We're changing the springs and lowering it. Not sure what the best tool to use to lower this. All right, so I managed to figure out, using the tip of a small flathead screwdriver, I could ease it down. Whoop. You can see it's a little, there we go. And you just push it down one little rung at a time. There you go. It's on the lowest position. All right, so just a few things before starting to put things back together is to kind of pay attention to how everything fits together. So, so this thing goes in here like so. You see, even when this thing comes apart, notice that it's got this little piece that goes in that little hole right there. So everything really has a way of fitting together properly. You know, this thing goes in like that. One thing that you'll notice is you can tell which side faces out, because the strut nut was here, and you can see the markings on there from where it was tightened down. Here's something that's interesting. These little circles have a place too, and you can see these kind of cutouts here on the top of this piece. That's how you know that this thing is properly positioned. You can see those circles falling into place right there. The other thing is, I already showed you about this washer, where that goes there, and this goes in here. This is, I guess, a bump stop or something, but that goes there. So anyways, just so it's good to pay attention to how everything goes together, because you don't want to put this together incorrectly. All right, so you want to start to put everything back together in the reverse order, and what I found was when you are compressing the spring, it might be a good idea to already have that boot and bellow inside of it because it's hard to push it through once you have these spring compressors wrapped around the spring. So I've kind of gone back and forth a couple times figuring out the best way to do it, and I think this is going to be it. All right, so after you've got the springs compressed, you push this strut through, and then you start to, let me reposition here, you start to reassemble here in the reverse order. So the first piece that goes in after this is assembled is, I guess, this bump stop. Here, maybe I can just put this on the ground, it might be easier. Let's see. So I believe that goes like that. Sorry if it's out of the view of the camera for the moment. I'm just pushing that down. Next, we would put this washer that we talked about earlier that fell off, and then I figured out where it belonged. Then this would go through there. Remember to line up these circles with the appropriate spots on the top there, which I will show you I did. All right, there we go. I don't know if you can see that, but then we're going to put this thing back in. Again, the way we know it belongs, has the marks on it from the original strut nut. So sorry if it's out of the field of view for the moment. I will get it back. Now we're in business. So now we do the reverse of what we did before, which is this goes on, and now I have to tighten this thing down to the correct torque specifications, which I will look up right now. Alright, so for the rear strut nut, it's 26 pounds, so I'm going to dial this into 26 right there, and let's see if I can get this thing to go easier than the other time. Now, one of the differences here you might notice is these threaded parts previously were pointing the other direction, which made it, I think, that may have been part of the problem I was having. But apparently we're still going to need to hold this thing in there, and there we go. So I am not going to do this on camera because I have a feeling it's going to take me a long time, like it did removing them. It definitely took a long time to remove, but I will work on this, and then as soon as I'm done, I will let you know how it went. Okay, so you can see I've started to move the strut all the way up here. Now I'm gonna have to push this. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing here. I'm gonna tip the camera up a little bit. You gotta push the PASM cable up through the hole there, and then you want to make sure there's only one way that the screws are going to line up in there. Now I'm gonna have to do some finagling down here to get this thing to line up properly. Once I do that, I will come back to the camera and show you how I got it set up. Alright, well, I will say that was not fun getting that strut assembly back up into the tower. Getting it tightened down wasn't too bad. There's the 27 millimeter nut there, followed by a T55 on the other side, torqued to 63 foot-pounds. So there's that. Now I'm just going to start reassembling the other parts of the control arm, the lower, the upper, so there's 3 left, and I'll have to get the torque specs before I go ahead and tighten those down. All right, so for this bolt on the lower control arm, the one closest to the brake caliper, this is the one that has the 21 millimeter nut, or actually that's the bolt head on that side with the 18 millimeter nut on the left here. That one is going to be torqued down to 88 foot-pounds. For now, I'm just going to hand tighten it using these wrenches. Back to this nut and bolt, you have the 16 millimeter on the right, the 18 millimeter on the left. I'm just going to hand tighten here using these wrenches, and then I will tighten it down to 63 foot-pounds. All right. This one here was a bit harder to get in. This is a single bolt that went in. There's no nut on that side. But this required a lot of wiggling in order for it to be able to push it through. I actually had to have my wife help me with that. So giving her credit. Anyway, so now I just gotta finish this, and that's gonna get tightened down to 63 foot-pounds. All right, well, this is just to report that I have completed tightening everything down to the proper torque specs. Now what's left to do is to go up into the car, up there inside the car from the inside, and replace the nuts on top of the strut tower. I'll do that after I take a shower, because right now I am way too greasy and sweaty to be crawling through my car like this. So anyways, we'll get to that momentarily. Almost forgot to put this guy back on the driver's side, so glad I remembered, because who knows what kind of errors that would have tripped. Anyway, I can take this tape off now. There we go. All right. Glad that I got that on. All right, so I've got my 3 nuts that go on the top of the strut tower in the 3 locations that you can see here. That back one is a little hard to see. I'm not going to try to film this because it's just hard enough to reach in there and do this without trying to make sure the camera angle is okay. But those need to be tightened down to 24 foot-pounds. So anyways, oh, and I also obviously have to reconnect the PASM cable, which is right there. All right, be back soon. Putting it together was a lot quicker and easier than taking it apart. I didn't try to get it on video because, once again, I couldn't find an angle where I wasn't completely covering what I was doing with my body. So anyways, goes back in nice and easy. And now on to the fronts. All right, on to part 2 of this awesome video. So now that we've got the rears done, we are going to work on the fronts. And I'm told that these fronts are going to take much less time to do, and I'm really hoping so, because those rears were a bit of a doozy. But anyways, it seems like there's a lot less to do with the fronts. We'll start by removing the strut tower nuts at the top, the 13 millimeter ones, just like the ones in the rear. Of course, we'll also disconnect the PASM cable and take off that nut at the very top of the strut using a 21 millimeter strut nut socket. And then we'll move down here and disconnect the end link. I believe you can see an 18 millimeter nut there. That is the one nut that has to be removed, or the one bolt. Once that's removed, I believe this whole assembly will drop down, and we will be able to very easily swap out the spring. Let's hope it is as easy as it is purported to be. But anyways, hang on tight because we're about to get started on this. All right, so there you can pop this little flap open here. I don't know if you could see that. And then once that's popped open, this thing pops out. And then kind of like the other one that we did in the back, there's a little tab here that you just lift open, and that allows this to separate. There we go. Next step will involve loosening these 3, and I'll start it here manually and then I'll use an electric cordless. There we go. Just make sure they're nice and loose. Be back. Okay, after revisiting, 10 millimeter is definitely the way to go on this one. And you can see it's already starting to come loose. But this does take a while. You have to do this over and over. So I'm not gonna have you watch me as I do this repeatedly, but I will let you know about how long it takes. And that really only took a couple of minutes. It actually came up a lot. Whoop, there goes my phone. It came off a lot easier than the rear ones did. All right, as I mentioned earlier, there's an 18 millimeter nut right there where I'm touching, right where I'm pointing the light. I have a socket already on it, and I'm going to use a breaker bar just to loosen it up, and then we'll hopefully be able to remove that one easily. All right, it's a little tricky to get. Let me flip this. It's a little tricky to get the camera angle. But after loosening it, it's definitely coming off easier now. All right, be back soon. All right, so I needed to have another wrench in here in order to hold the nut from the inside from spinning, and I ended up using a 3/4 inch because I don't have a 20 millimeter, and the 19 is too small and the 21 is too big. And there we go. I need to remember this, 3/4 of an inch, and that's why I'm making a video of this so I don't forget. All right, so after having removed that nut, you want to get rid of some of the tension that is that is pressing down because of the spring. And so you want to go ahead and lift right at this little round piece right there. So you want to find something that you can put on your jack, and you're just going to lift up right there. All right, so after it's raised up a little bit on the jack, you can slide this, whoops, you can slide this piece out. Let's see. Let me lower it a little. There we go. Whoa. Just to show you, it's this piece that slides out. Now we can lower the jack slowly, and the spring should just start to drop out. There we go. You can see it. And then, whoops. Now we'll start to take these parts out. Oh, it's completely dropped now. Gotta wiggle it out a little. See if I can figure this part out here. There we go. Whoa! Cut it. So then from here, we raise it back up and we pull the spring out through the top. So I've got this part off, and now I'm going to just put this down here. I'm going to carefully raise it back up, make sure that I get the get it right where I want to lift. There we go. Now this assembly does weigh a little bit. You don't want to pinch this wire here, so just be careful with that. It's just a very important wire. There we go. Woo! Now, should be able to, I say should, be able to remove and up it comes, the whole spring assembly. Be careful, you don't want to lose any parts. And there you have it. All right, so here we have, just for comparison, the old spring and the new spring. So just going to be careful as I'm taking the old one apart, or removing the rubber boot out of it, or the bellow, or whatever you want to call it, that it goes back in the correct way. And just for those watching the video, just remember this part here that has the longer flat part goes towards the bottom. You can see it's got the bump stop thing in there. So let's see if we can get this to just go back in. Hope it's that easy. Remember, you want to be sure to get the PASM cable in there. Be hard to imagine how that would not make it, but I guess you just gotta be careful. And maybe might be easier if you compress it. There we go, I see it now. See the PASM cable. All right. Gotta make sure you get it in the hole. That's what she said. Ba-dum-bum. Appears to be making contact the way it should down below. Let's take a look. Okay, now I've fully lowered the assembly using the jack. I just let it drop all the way down gently and slowly. The top plate here, I put it up there nice and loose. You could see that it's just very loosely mounted there. Just want to have a place to have this part here connect. Now keep in mind, this has a particular shape. See, it's got these little ears here, and the ears are there. And so, and also be aware you have this little end piece here, which is where the end of the spring right there goes into. So you kind of have to make sure everything lines up nice. And we'll just, we could start by putting this piece in here like that. Oops, I hope I didn't bump it too far out of the way for you guys.
So I have it like that. Nope. There we go. Now we just got to get those little ears to line up. And then once those ears are lined up and we push the that cable through the hole there, then we can jack it up. So I'm going to get the jack in position, and it looks like this is lined up. Get the little ears there into position, and then we'll go from there. After you get it all into place, you start to tighten down these nuts. You push, you jack it up until the top of the strut comes up through here. Then we're going to go ahead and slip this strut nut, which is a 21mm strut nut, on there. We're going to torque that down to, I believe, 34 pounds. Let me check on that. Actually, that will be 35 pounds on that strut nut. After that's done, we'll tighten these down to 24 pounds, and then we'll connect the PASM cable, and then we'll lower the jack. All right, that's 24 there, 24 there, 24 there. In case anybody wants to see, that's 35 foot-pounds right there. And that'll be 63 foot-pounds of torque. All snug like a bug in a rug. Up top two. Now on to the passenger side, or right side of the vehicle. Whew. I am out of breath, but I am done. I finally got the car, all four wheels down. Everything is done. Haven't taken measurements yet, but I mean, it's such a night and day difference the way it looks right now compared to the way it looked before. I mean, before it looked like almost like a safari vehicle to me, even though I realize it wasn't. But I mean, now there's still a gap there, which is fine, but it's just not such an overwhelming gap. It's just perfect. And the 5mm spacers that I put in just give it just that extra little pop out the side, which is also perfect. I mean, I'm very, very happy with this. And I'll tell you, this was a hard one. Fortunately, I studied how to do it, and I was ready for it, and I encountered a few little challenges on the way. But I mean, I got this done basically in 2 days. Not 2 full working days, but I mean, I spent a full day just on the rears, and then a few hours on the fronts. And you know, I'm here in South Florida. I'm so hot and sweaty right now. As if you can't tell, and you couldn't tell by my sweat dripping throughout the entire DIY, but very gratified by this, and can't wait to go take a shower and take this car for a ride. But anyways, I'm just gonna say this now, but I'm gonna come back in a minute and take measurements. But if you like what you saw here, and I know you did, because this was nuts, this was next level nuts, next level past the sport cats. But if you do like what you saw here, don't forget to hit like, comment, subscribe. Tell me what you liked about the video. Tell me what you didn't like about it. And if you have any other ideas for DIY projects, I'd love to hear them. But in the meantime, stay tuned, because there is more to come. All right, now for some real world measurements, just a day after installation on these rears. We're coming in at just around, just a hair below 27.5 inch. So I would say that's almost a full inch lower, about 7/8 of an inch lower than originally, which was 28 3/8 of an inch. And previously the back was about 27.5 inches, and now it's 26. Let me get it right there in the middle. 26, just a hair under 26 7/8 of an inch. So almost, I would say almost 3/4 of an inch drop. So why is there more of a drop in the rear than in the front? Well, first of all, the rear has been settling for about a day, but I don't think that that's the main reason why. The main reason why, if you recall, is that when we were installing these rear springs, we lowered the perch a little bit, which allowed us to bring it down more than originally, which the front shocks did not have that ability to do that. So now the car is a little bit more leveled out. So I'm very happy with this. Not too much of a drop, but just enough of a drop to give the car a better appearance and presumably some better handling as well. Just one more view of the car, trying to hold the camera here at level to the wheels, but I think it looks awesome, and I hope you do too. So I think this will be the last video. I just took the car out for a ride, and to be honest with you, I didn't really, drive the car very hard, and I wasn't really able to feel that the car was handling or riding any differently, which is good because to me the car handled and rode very nicely before. But I guess, only time will tell if there's like any improvements in the ride or handling. Not expecting there to be any kind of significant change, but definitely it looks different, and I gotta say I'm very happy with how it turned out. Now you're seeing it from the other side because I pulled the car in. Normally I back the car into the garage, but you can see it's got a real nice drop there. Not too low, not too high. And I also wanted to show, here's remember my real nice organized tools that I had when I first started the project? Well, clearly I've got some cleaning up to do. And I used a lot more tools than I originally thought I was going to use. But anyways, that's it. Take care and see you soon.